Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's information session on the Willoughby Road Streetscape upgrade. We've got a presentation to give you tonight as part of the consultation for this project. But before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal traditional custodians of this land. I would like to pay my respects to elders, both past and present, the spirits and ancestors, and extend the respect to other Aboriginal people present. I'm the Director of Engineering and Property Services here at North Sydney Council. My name's Duncan Mitchell, and I have Paul Yang, Project Manager, with me tonight as well, who's the Project Manager for this project. So really the purpose of tonight's presentation is to give you a brief overview of the project. There's quite a few slides, lots of pictures and artist impressions to give you some background. And then also at the end, we're happy to take questions. We've already got some written questions in from people who were attending the session, but we're also happy to take questions online by you just simply sending those questions into us via the chat line as part of this. So you can do that as we go through the presentation, and you can wait to the end. That's up to you. So just some other general housekeeping items before we get started. This session will run for approximately 30 minutes, and we'll have 10 minutes for question time. I hope we'll get through this faster than 30 minutes. That'll leave more time for questions. Our presentation, as I said, will respond to the pre-submitted questions. Can you please ensure that your microphones are all muted throughout the session? And if you're participating via a computer or smart device, as I said before, please use that chat function to send in the questions that you have. This session is also recorded and will be made available as part of our Q&A summary on Council's website, and we'll email all of tonight's participants the link to that website. Alternatively, as you know, you can also put your questions in as part of the consultation session, which public consultation, Paul, closes on 20th of November. So still, quite a bit of time. And you can put those questions in through the Have Your Say website here at Council. So without any further ado, I will start to talk about and move through this presentation that we've been prepared for the Willoughby Road Streetscape upgrade. Just some background, you might be aware that Council report went to Council back in July, August of this year, asking for funds for this important upgrade, which has been in our delivery program for a number of years, but really not enough money to do a proper upgrade of Willoughby Road. So we've had money to do some planning and design work, but never enough money to do the actual capital works to do the upgrade. Now that changed in, as I said, July, August of this year, with a report going to Council where we now have enough money in the capital works budget to do this important upgrade. So just a very quick overview. We're going out with two options to start a conversation with the community. The options are known as 1 and 2, but of course, we're not asking you to directly support or not support one of the options. You can certainly pick what you like and don't like about either option and tell us, because at the end of this process, what we want to do is come up with a preferred option, which could be option 1 or 2, depending on the outcomes of the consultation, or it could be a combination of options 1 and 2. We're going to talk to you a little bit about tonight with the finishes palette, and the finishes palette, by we mean the sorts of materials that are going to be used in the public domain upgrade. Then a little bit about continuing our conversation with you through the Have Your Say session, and then next steps, and then we'll go into questions. So just some background. Back in 2015-16, North Sydney Council prepared a master plan for the public domain in Crow's Nest, and we identified a number of different projects throughout Crow's Nest that required upgrading. And in the next slide, I'll show you which projects we've completed, but then also what we want to complete as part of the continuation of completing that master plan, which is getting close to being complete, but Willoughby Road is one of the key projects that, as I said before, just did not have enough money in its initial budgets for it to proceed, whereas the other projects that we've completed to date, like Ernest Place, Alexander Street, Burlington Street, Clark Street, and other small parts of the Pacific Highway that have all been completed, have been smaller projects. So we have done a fair bit of work on that master plan that was adopted by council, but this is probably the key project of that master plan that we're now embarking on. So as I said, might be a bit hard for you to see here on the screen, but if you can, the yellow hatched areas on this diagram are showing you what has been completed to date as part of the master plan. And then we're showing you in the red hatched area, the Willoughby Road. We've already done stage 1 of Willoughby Road, which is the very front part of it, which was done in 2019. But then we stopped at roughly the Clark-Burlington Street intersections, because the next stage of Willoughby Road, which we're calling stage 2, is that really commercial core, that commercial heart of Crow's Nest that has lots of outdoor cafe, restaurants, outdoor dining, but also a lot of other commercial activities. Then the final stage, which we're not sure when that will be undertaken, is stage 3, which takes us all the way down to Atchison Street from Albany Street. So that's just a rough overview of the master plan, but also the stages or our proposed staging plan for this work. Now, the two options have fairly two different I guess, approaches. They have two very different styles in how they've been presented. And this first option is what we're sort of calling the curvilinear design. It's very much an organic option. It's very much a different concept to what is currently in Willoughby Road, which you'd probably say is more a formal landscape option, a formal design. This is a much more, as I said, organic, natural design with a curved barrier, if you like, or a curved wall that provides separation between the footpath and pedestrian areas, and of course the very busy Willoughby Road. So the most important part of this project, in my opinion, is to get that edge correct. The edge treatment between Willoughby Road and the public space, the footpath and the outdoor dining areas, has to be done well, so that we create that separation, but also at the same time we create a very vibrant and inviting outdoor dining, public domain, public footpath area between the property boundaries and the road. And I think some of these designs go some way to achieving that in terms of separation, landscaping, the arrangement of the bays, and the selection of paving materials and other streetscape materials. So there's some reference images of where curvilinear designs have been used in public spaces, in public domains before. So it's not a new concept. It has been used in various parts of the world, various parts of Australia. It's just a different style, and there's some reference images there showing you the materials, mostly off-form concrete, but also timber and other materials that have been used to create that curvilinear design. That's a plan of a section of Willoughby Road that would show you in plan view how that curvilinear design would work, how it would create separation between Willoughby Road and the footpaths and the dining areas, and also some of the landscaping treatments and paving treatments that then go into those bays and also into the roadway areas as well. So that's showing, again, a little bit more detail with some umbrellas, some cafe umbrellas. One of the objectives of the design is also to create a much cleaner and clearer sight lines between bays and also between pedestrians and footpath users. And we'll see this in a couple of artist impressions coming up. We're proposing that there is raised planters through here. We will be a raised planter, the curvilinear design, and there will be a minimum 3-metre width clearance between the pedestrian paths and the outdoor dining bays and eating areas, so they have plenty of accessibility. That's showing you in as a section of what it would look like. There's some articulation through there with some wide trellising or some infills between the wall and the dining bays and the roadway, sorry. And also it just shows you some of the other vertical elements there. The proposal to use very mature trees, lighting elements, and also the umbrella elements as well. That shows you an overall diagram for the section that we would be looking at upgrading both sides of Willoughby Road. So that shows you the extent of the new works using that curvilinear design concept in option 1. Option 2, and sorry, just back on option 1, curvilinear design, there's 2 very distinct planting styles. The curvilinear design is proposing to use a much more informal planting scheme, native plants, not formal, not parterre, sort of like what you've got up there at the moment. It is much more a naturalistic looking landscape planting style, planting palette, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. This option 2 is a more modular design. It's the more formal design in terms of planting, and this uses different modules that can be used to create bigger, smaller dining bays, areas, public spaces, as required through tenancies, as required through council needing public space. But these are much more flexible in that we can create dining bays that are specific to dining areas, and where there aren't restaurants or cafes, then the bays can be just simply used as public seating spaces. And that shows you there some of the different arrangements that we can use the bays in. So it's showing you some examples here of tables and chairs, which would obviously be used for outdoor dining, but also where areas aren't required for outdoor dining, they could then be used as passive recreation areas or informal recreation areas, and we could use things such as grass, informal seating, for people to just informally occupy those spaces. So then if tenancies change, the modules can be moved around. They are heavy, but they are movable, and they can be moved around to change up whatever the use is in the adjoining tenancies. Again, that's just showing you an overall section, plan and section of what the modules would look like. And how they would work, and then also some of the vertical elements. As you can see, it's quite a different treatment altogether to the curvilinear design in option 1. That's just some of the examples of the modules that you can use. They are manufactured. They are readily available from suppliers. These are not things that have to be bespoke or specifically designed. The modules can be made to order through suppliers here in Australia. That just shows you again, it's exactly the same extent of works as option 1, but just using this modular design. So the overall scope doesn't change between options. We're not proposing any different sizes or lengths of areas to be upgraded. They're both exactly the same. It's just the treatments that we're using to upgrade those areas that are different.
I think something that's come up through the submissions is there'll be no loss of parking as well. That's an important point to raise. And there'll be no change to the current road alignments.
Thanks, Paul. Yep, that's correct. And there's also no change to the existing size of the outdoor dining areas anywhere. So the current licensed outdoor dining areas are certainly going to be retained in their size, and in some instances increased. There's certainly no decreases in the size of the licensed areas, and this is just showing you some of those differences in the areas between option 1 and option 2. But compared to the existing sizes, there is no change. These metrics here are exactly what's there now plus extra square metres. Just some artist's impressions. So this is showing what the curvilinear design would look like in option 1. As I said, planting is more informal. There's also, it shows you the separation between Willoughby Road and the outdoor dining areas. It shows you the different configuration of the umbrellas. We've put them to the side to create more space, so you don't have a centralised umbrella pole in the middle of the space, which should create more opportunities for tables and chairs. It also shows you that clear 3 metre distance between the property boundaries or the shops and the dining areas, so that there is a good accessibility through there, and it just shows you just some of the different arrangements that can be done in terms of seating arrangements. Now, council doesn't supply the seating or tables and chairs. It supplies some of the bench seating, but it won't supply the seating for specific businesses who want to occupy the outdoor dining spaces. That just shows you what it looks like at night. There is quite a strong design element that comes across in both options, and that is the use of LED decorative lighting. It's proposed to really use quite a bit of LED decorative lighting, both embedded or incorporated into the streetscape furniture elements, but also incorporated into the trees and planting as well, so that this area becomes really very much more vibrant at night. I know at the moment it does rely, that vibrancy does come from the lights in the shops and the premises opposite, but we're proposing to add to that vibrancy with the outdoor dining spaces and street furniture. We also are proposing to put in obviously banner poles and new street lighting lamps. So there are new street lighting lamps to replace the existing goosenecks, which have reached the end of their useful life that you'll see in Crow's Nest. So this is option 2, and this is the more, like I said, modular design. It's also the more formal planting design. So this is similar in terms of formal planting. Formal planting is what you have in Crow's Nest at the moment. It's clipped hedges, bald figs, it's parterre, if you like, in style, and it's maintained by council in that way through quite an intensive maintenance regime to keep it all looking good. We'd also be upgrading the irrigation and making sure that all of these planters and new planted areas have sufficient irrigation so that watering is not an issue, and we'll be looking at opportunities wherever we can to reuse water as well as part of this project. Again, that shows you what option 2 would look like at night. You can just see there the different styles in the modular design between the separation of Willoughby Road, but also the separation between the different bays, if you like, and also some ideas around possible branding in Crow's Nest with infills of separation panels and planting opportunities as well. But it just shows you that we are thinking about other ways to possibly brand Crow's Nest, where the opportunities are for things like logo infills and the rest of it. That's just showing you another view of option 1, so the curvilinear design, looking at it from Willoughby Road and showing you what that separation would look like, and the same view at night. In the corner there, you've got what the existing situation looks like. As I said, it's a clipped, formal style of landscaping in the existing planters and planter bays there that you have at the moment. We'll be looking at replacing all of those planters and fences, and there has been a question I've noticed raised tonight about will you reuse some of the plants? I'll get to that question, but I can tell you now in advance, yes, of course, we'll be looking at trying to reuse some of those plants if we're going for the more formal option. If that's what the community wants, is a more formal option, yep, we have some ready-made plants that can be reused. This is option 2, so this is the more modular design. Again, just showing you how some of those key streetscape elements work, the key ones being the light poles, the mature trees, and also the design of the separation, the modular separation between Willoughby Road and the outdoor dining areas. Quickly, we'll go through the finishes and materials colour palette. So the type of paving we're using is similar, or it's part of what's been adopted by council, the public domain style manual up there to be used in Crow's Nest. You will have seen this paving rolled out in Alexander Street, Burlington Street, Ernest Place, Pacific Highway, and Clark Road. So this is our standard palette. It's a sort of orange paver. We are proposing to use in the dining bays, however, a darker paver in the dining terraces to absorb that grime, which we know and we've received a lot of feedback from the current paving, where those terraces don't stand up too well to food and spillage. And no matter how much gurning or cleaning you do, we can never really get that grime out of the existing pavers, what I call the dog biscuit paving that you've got up there at the moment in Willoughby Road. This paver, particularly the dark paver, and the way it's finished, it's less absorbent all round. Both pavers are less absorbent, should be much easier to clean and maintain. Again, some of the other key streetscape furniture elements on the left-hand side, I don't know which way you're looking at this, but you can see the existing streetscape furniture elements. These are from the 1980s and 1990s. The gooseneck lights have literally reached the end of their useful life. We really can't get parts for them anymore. And the old, I call them London-esque bollards. These are the bollards that you see all around London if you've been lucky enough to go to London, which is just simply the old ship's cannon tipped upside down with a cannonball put in the top. This is copied all throughout London when they decommissioned the old tall ships and decommissioned the old self-loading cannon guns. They turned them into bollards throughout all the streets in London. And we've copied them here in North Sydney. So we're proposing that to be all replaced. And with the stuff on the right-hand side, it shows you the different styles of new streetscape furniture: bubblers, seats, benches, bins, bollards, and bike racks. You can see all of those anywhere in North Sydney you want to go in terms of upgraded village centre, so Neutral Bay. You can see that. You can see these lights in Burlington Street, Crow's Nest. You can also see the seats in Burlington Street, Crow's Nest, and the bin. So it's already being rolled out all throughout Crow's Nest at the moment, or it has been for the last 5 years. Now, the informal planting. This is the sorts of plants we'll be talking about, not specifically, but the style, if you like. So grassy plants, succulents, more informal style plants that rely on foliage, colour, and different leaf arrangements and contrasts in leaf arrangements to provide that interest in the landscape. So this is more in option 1, curvilinear design, which you'd call a more informal planting scheme. And of course, in option 2, we have the more formal planting scheme, which is what you've sort of got there at the moment. It's figs, I think, at the moment. This is just showing clipped English box or buxus and other more formal plants. So it's really, we'd like to hear back from the community about what style they prefer. Do they want to change from the current formal style, or do they want to stick with the current formal style if they're happy with that? Of course, it'll all be redone in a consistent way, but the look you get will be something that you have for many years to come, because once the plants go in they're chosen and selected in the style, then they should last for many, many, many years. Okay, so that's the design we've talked about for the 2 options. And as I said, we're not wedded to either options. They're there just to create a conversation piece. You, of course, can say whether you like one particular option or another, but you can also, we're welcoming you to say, I like this part or I don't like this part of these options, and you can choose either option, and then we will come up with a preferred option. So, Paul, do you want to just maybe talk about the next steps in the Have Your Say process for this project?
So we're open for consultation. We have been since the 10th of October, and there are 3 weeks left. We are closing consultation on the 20th, which is some 3 weeks away from now. Very easy to submit your feedback with our QR code. So you can just Google Willoughby Road upgrade and it'll take you to our Have Your Say page. Very low stress to choose your preferred option, and also to prioritise what elements you like. And we do take all feedback seriously. Our consultants are 100% on board to coming up with a preferred design which incorporates your feedback. So please jump online and have your say. We've got some good submissions so far. We've got almost 100 feedback submissions, which is excellent for a project like this, and we encourage more. Yeah.
So sorry, I just want to go back there, Paul. The next key part of this is, I think, tomorrow is a walkthrough. You're welcome to come with that. Paul and other staff will be there, and the design consultants, to walk through the actual site, and you can have a face-to-face chat. We had a lot of face-to-face chat at the recent Crow's Nest Fair, where we had a tent set up, and it was well patronised. Paul, how many people came to that?
Oh, I think there were 30,000 people at the event, and maybe 30,000 people at the council tent. No, just kidding.
It would be nice, but yeah, there was a lot of interest at that at the fair. And then finally, I think, as Paul said, feedback closes on the 20th of November.
All right. Burning question is, when is it going to happen? And we need to go through some tendering steps after we get the preferred design. So that's going to take 2 months at least. And that means we wouldn't be able to start construction until April next year. So after Easter next year, and the thinking behind that start date is it gives us a lead in to take advantage of this year's budget and next year's budget, but also allows us to push to a pre-Christmas finish. And it's really important that we don't disrupt the Christmas trading period for the businesses down there. So starting in April will give us enough time in the year to finish up and avoid that Christmas trade period.
Thanks.
Questions?
Okay, so we're going to just quickly start now with the written questions that we've received prior to tonight's presentation, and we've only got 3 of those. But while I'm going through these, I'd encourage you to now use the online chat and send any questions you have. We've already got 1 or 2 into us through the online chat mechanism, and we'll answer those as well, because these aren't going to take too long to answer. So the first question we have is, how will this upgrade comply with accessibility standards and universal design for people with mobility challenges, prams, etc.? And I'm happy to answer this one, and Paul can back me up. All the designs that we do for our public domain upgrades are designed to ensure that we meet DDA, which is the Disability Discrimination Act, and we use all the relevant Australian standards for that to design our footpaths, ramps, and access into shops, and also access into pedestrian crossings, etc. So it will be designed to those current Australian standards. There's no question about that.
Yeah, specifically AS 1428, access and mobility.
Yep. Question 2, will the current mature plants be reused in the new scheme? And as I alluded to in the presentation, that will depend on what scheme you want to go with. Doesn't mean we won't use the plants anywhere else, but it's certainly, if the community's preference is for the informal look, then the current plants are not appropriate. If the community goes for the formal look and they want to go with a more formal planting scheme, then of course these plants, the current plants, are very appropriate and can be reused. They would be reused anyway. If we were going to do the other scheme, the informal scheme, we'd find somewhere else in the LGA to use them, so they would never go to waste. Question 3, what is happening with the existing dining bay umbrellas? Okay, so it is a contentious issue, but the existing dining bay umbrellas are the responsibility of the business owners. They have to prescribe to a particular style that council has in its outdoor dining policy, and the style is designed to make sure there is some consistency, but also some structural integrity to the materials and design used, so that these umbrellas don't pose any public liability issues or risk for people who occupy council's public area and public land. So that's why we have specific design standards around the umbrellas. They will, of course, as we've shown in the design now, the current ones you've got would be removed, but we're encouraging the property owners to go with the new umbrella design, which is the one that's offset from the centre of the dining bays to the edge of the dining bays. But those umbrellas would have to be or meet council's design standards for a public structure in a public space, similar to what exists with the existing umbrellas, but also in terms of style. We'd like to create some sort of consistent style so there isn't 25 different umbrella types down Willoughby Road. And that's what a lot of councils do for their outdoor public domain areas, is they do have what we call style guidelines and design guidelines to create that consistency, but also to make sure that there are no public liability issues with poorly constructed umbrellas or other structures in the public domain that unfortunately council is ultimately responsible for.
Excellent. Okay, we've got an excellent question from Alita. Beyond irrigation, what sustainability measures are you proposing as part of either concepts? I can answer that.
Yeah.
That's a great question. It's really part of North Sydney Council's vision for sustainability. For streetscapes, we have some opportunities of using low embodied energy materials, and it's already in our planning phase, and that involves using green concrete, which uses an alternative to high embodied energy cement, which is a recycled fly ash. We're also looking at replacing our steel reinforcement, which again reduces our embodied energy, with a synthetic fibre alternative, and that has the added advantage of speeding up construction. Bike parking will be considered as part of the design, and you can see evidence of that already installed all through Crow's Nest. Council has recently opened the Hume Street upgrade, which is a link through to the new metro station opening in 2024. And that's really tying into the move away from vehicle dependence. So this linkage and this streetscape will encourage pedestrian and cycling modes of transport. So those are a few practical measures. And I guess in terms of longer term, we'll be reducing our energy consumption through the changeover of those existing gooseneck lights, which are
non-LED,
which are non-LED with a much more energy efficient LED, which is also a smart light, which can be dimmed remotely using our smart city remote technology. So thanks for the question.
I'd also add that obviously the selection of plant materials we can choose to be more hardy, more drought resistant. Again, that comes down to the style. I would suggest, and you probably know, that the more informal planting lends itself to the use of those plants that are more drought resistant. The formal planting arrangement, there really is no science to this other than it is quite high maintenance, and it's high maintenance from not just a physical clipping and looking after it, but it is a little bit more water intensive as well. The sorts of species of plants that like that mature look are not as drought resistant as, say, the plants that have been proposed for the informal planting. In terms of water supply, that's something I'd like to look into about where we can tap into water tanks or existing water. That's something we'll investigate in more the detailed design phase. There isn't, unfortunately, any opportunity to do on-site detention. Here, we just don't have the area or the budget at this stage to do it.
Okay, we've got a very practical question from Michael Hagan. What time is the walkthrough tomorrow and the location in Crow's Nest? So it's on at 4 p.m. and we're meeting outside number 59 Willoughby Street, Willoughby Road, which is Bravo Cafe. But you need to register if you want to attend because numbers are capped at 20 and tickets are selling fast. So register, the cost is free, but you need to register, and that's on the Have Your Say page. Thanks.
Okay, are there any more questions? Please send them through to chat. But I'm just seeing here, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So look, what I'd like to do is just thank everyone who's attended tonight, but also thank everyone who is going to be continuing their conversation with us for the development of this important project in Crow's Nest. It really is something that we're all looking forward to getting done and getting it done sooner than later, because I think everyone would agree that Willoughby Road, Crow's Nest needs a significant boost, a significant upgrade to what it currently is. So thank you all very much for participating. Again, please go to Council's Have Your Say page if you need any more information or you want to put a submission in. And also just reminding you that the feedback for the receiving submissions is Sunday, the 20th of November. So thank you everyone for attending, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you and being in contact with you before the 20th of November. Thank you.